வணக்கம். குட் மார்னிங்.
குட் மார்னிங் சார்.
என்ன அனாட்டமி எக்ஸாம்னு போட்டிருக்கு?
அதான் சேஞ்ச் பண்றேன் சார். அவங்க இந்த ஹோஸ்ட் ஐடி தான் கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. அதான் நேம் மட்டும் சேஞ்ச் பண்ணுங்க.
வணக்கம் சரவணன். அவரு சார் வந்து எப்போ எத்தனை மணிக்கு ஜாயின் பண்றாரு
சார்?
அவர் எத்தனை மணிக்கு ஜாயின் பண்றாரு சார்?
தெரியல சார். பண்றேன்னாங்க. நான் பேசல சார். இல்லை ஜாயின் பண்றேன்னாங்க. நான் டைம் கேட்கல சார். பேசல சார்.
ஓ சரி. சரவணன் நீங்க அவர்கிட்ட கோஆர்டினேட் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க இல்லையா?
ஆமா சார் தான் கோஆர்டினேட் பண்றாங்க நினைக்கிறேன்.
இருக்காரா லைன்ல? நம்ம காலேஜ்லாம் ரெடியா following from the participants. Yeah.
So I'm planning for around 80-90 minutes kind of a thing. I will try to make it little brief so that you can cover little more.
Okay, I think Radhika, you can make the start.
Sure. Okay.
I request all of you to please mute yourselves. Kindly keep yourselves muted so that we won't have any disturbances during the session. Hi and good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So I'm Architect Radhika and I welcome you all to this session for today. And we have with us Dean, Professor Architect Loganathan sir. Welcome sir. And joining with us also is our Assistant Professor Architect Saravanan sir. Welcome sir. And today we have with us our speaker and presenter Shivashankar Babu sir. I welcome you to today's session sir. Thank you for joining us. So Shivashankar Babu sir is a techno-functional banker with 39 plus years in financial services industry with a passion for mentoring, travel and spreading heritage awareness. He's actually worked over 15 years in Indian Overseas Bank and many IT companies like Hexaware, Wipro, Capgemini and many other companies for around 20 years. And for the past 4 years, he's been doing
the temple architecture Zoom meeting. Temple architecture development.
I request all of you to please mute yourselves. So, and he's also been handling many mentoring sessions for final year BE students and campus placement. He's been supporting final year placement guidance for IIT Madras, and he's also been reviewing
the flask இருக்குல்ல
Indian history. He's been renewing his passion for Indian history, its ancient commerce, temple architecture, epigraphy, iconography for attending seminars and reference book. And he has also traveled extensively through Tamil Nadu, the land of temples. And he is a part of Tamil Heritage Trust, which focuses on spreading heritage awareness. And he is one of the trained docent guide and handles a lot of heritage training sessions for teachers. And he also does presentations on heritage subjects at groups like Stapati, Kala Parishad Tripati, and IITM Nellore, and CCVA Vijayawada, University of Kerala, etc. So he's also working on entry-level guide for beginners on Tamil Nadu temple architecture, and his features and developments are to be actually released soon. So he'll be the perfect person to talk about our heritage in Tamil Nadu. I welcome you, sir, and over to you, sir. Looking forward to the session.
Thank you. Thank you all. First of all, Thanks for giving me an opportunity to hello. Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're
Right.
audible, sir.
Okay. First of all, thank you all and Vanakkam. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to spread Tamil Nadu heritage to the interested people. First of all, thanks Architect Loganathan, who contacted me and then known to me and then referred for an option to talk about the other side of temples. Hello, can you put others on mute, please? Because every time the screen is getting shifted. So,
Can all of you please mute your mics? We have a very interesting and nice presentation that is going to come up. I request all of you that put your into mute.
Padma, you can put everybody on mute. I will unmute myself. Okay, so good. So thanks for the management of Chettinad Architectural School and the team who coordinated with me for making this event happen. The primary objective of this session is to talk about temple architecture. Let us go directly into the presentation. So the objective of, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Okay, cool. So the objective of this session is to talk about temple architectural heritage of Tamil Nadu to the interested architecture background people. Okay, so this is in several dimensions. As an architect, you know certain concepts and structures and other things, but what we are trying to do today is to talk about the heritage, how it has grown in Tamil Nadu in particular, from olden ages to the current scenario and how it has progressed. What are the logics, techniques, innovations? One part, the engineering, right? That engineering, how they have used it with beauty.
அதை போட்டு அதுல கூட்டுறேன் சவுண்ட் வைக்க முடியுமா இவ்வளவுதானே கையை தொட்டுறாது அது
Hello. How this is done in a beautiful way. The engineering is done in a beautiful way. Helps us to understand the heritage of temple architecture in Tamil Nadu. Before we go into this, this is around probably 1 hour, 15 minutes. And we are going to spend multiple aspects of temple architecture. So before we go in, I give my pranams to Google Endeavor, who gives the content on demand, and Wikipedia, which collates everything and gives it in a nice format, and the standard books, the ultimate books in this space, temple architecture, Adam Hardy, who puts a totally different perspective on how temples are structured. And the Encyclopedia of Indian Temple Architecture by Michael Measer and consolidated by M.A. Daki. There is an absolute reference book. And my parent organization, Tamil Heritage Trust, through which I have learned a lot of material in the site seminars and other travels to various places. And all this, which I am talking now, is based on what I could little understand based on presentation and temple architecture by Professor Shankara Narayanan, Professor Manoj and other seniors who are leaders in the field. And also discussion with some of the peers like Soundri, Rajkumar, Dr. Surendran and several others whom we interact on a regular basis and exchange and increase our knowledge. So this is the base with which whatever I have understood little so far, I am trying to explain it in a simple manner to the architectural students. Before we go into the prime architecture, let us give our pranams and salutation to the Shilpis. Now you are studying architecture, okay, simple. And you are studying one aspect of construction. Before we do is, normally whenever we talk about a movie, we talk about the hero and not the director, the people who actually did it, right? But when we talk about a temple, we always talk about the king who did it. Rajaraja built it. Rajaraja did not build it. He was a sponsor, but actually the skill of the Sthapatis who made it happen. So pranams to our Sthapatis. Becoming a Sthapati is not a joke. It is not that you go to one area, go and get a B civil or B structural, B mechanical, B biomedical. Read so many other aspects. Be familiar with facial measurements, Talamana measurements, body language you need to know, ornaments and mudra, structural engineering, rock type, geology, metallurgical tools for chisel and other things you need to understand and you need to do it. Animal parts to depict this, chemistry in terms of coloring, bonding of various materials. And nowadays, latest advanced Sthapatis need to know AutoCAD, Lightroom and Photoshop for visualization and doing line drawing. So we give our pranams to the multifaceted Vishwakarma's Shilpis, and then we start our presentation. Our first view is how do temple worship and materials evolved over a period in Tamil Nadu from olden times. So this is a brief overview of how things happen. So earlier, when the man were in wild, they were worshipping the unknown things, nature, sun, moon, river, thunder, fire, which you couldn't fathom, who couldn't understand. So they were the gods. Then later on, weapon worship. The moment they tied a stone to a pole and then started creating spear, man got a different kind of technology. So the weapon became supreme and the people started worshipping the weapon. This is where the veil and other worship, spear worship and everything came into being. And then when they were living at the time in the natural caves, the weapons and other things were kept and there is where their temples. Later on, when man moved into plains and started cultivating paddy and others, they were staying in a fixed place. So initially, the temples and other things were under the tree with or without a roof, open structures. And then these are all small symbolic forms, either a shaft or a rock or a painting. Okay. Later on, as the construction technology improved and the people started building their houses, wood, mortar and brick usage. So the temples also started developing in the same way in wood and it was reflected in the living and always one of the best structured buildings in that particular area. Later on, by the time the iron and other advanced development started, people started chiseling caves because the caves are there in the mind, okay, that doesn't leave. His time, since mid-memorial, living in caves is always there. So again, they wanted to go back to the origin and started digging caves. So they started doing cut-in caves. And then there is one technology. And then they started doing monoliths in many places in Tamil Nadu, in Mahabalipuram, Kadukumalai, and all these things. So they choose a hillock and then remove all the unwanted stuff and then shape it like a temple. It is very easy to say and very difficult to visualize and plan from vertical top-down approach. Typically, an architect works bottom up. Here it is a totally different. First, you design the topmost floor and start coming down. Imagine if it is a spreading building, how much of calculation you need to do. Then from this, they went into the technology of stones. So far we have been doing only the groups of wood mortar, and then they bind using the mortar and then started building it. So they started doing the technology in stone where they used to cut down blocks and then build one on top and then started building structural stone temples. That was a variation. And even in that, they tried a lot of multi-story vimanas where multiple sanctums are there, one on top of other. And finally, the advent of RCC, reinforced concrete, changed the entire picture. Now you can construct in whatever you want. The load bearing and all this stuff is not a major concern now. And we have got a lot of flexibility, and you can have grand overhangs and then grand curves. Everything is very easily possible, which was a tough job earlier to do it. Now, having seen this progression, where are these temples? Okay, if you see this, many of these wooden mortar and other things have been either been damaged or migrated to stone structures. So the earliest ones we see about the earlier wood and mortar stuff is the Salavan Kuppam temple, which is available near Mahabalipuram, which talks about the basement. This is a 5th century temple, but the basement is of Sangamira, very old bricks. So this is the oldest possible temple, which we can see now, to the latest one, the Golden Temple in Vellore, which is a total concrete stuff with the beautiful glittering gold paint. So this is how the construction material and the approach changed from time immemorial to the current period. So people earlier were living in so many different areas. Okay, that memory is always there in the mind. It doesn't go out. So even when he started giving temples, these temples were reflecting the kind of huts they were living in, and the forms are getting reflected. So if you look at the basic forms available in Tamil Nadu, the major forms are like this: square plan layered top, and then square plan amalaka top, square plan hut top, and then the apsidal plan and the apsidal top. This is rectangle plus half circle, and a rectangle plan with a wagon roof kind of an salakara top, and a square plan with a polygon top. This is a 6-angle or hexagon or octagon. So this is the most common form of temple which is available in Tamil Nadu. Now, before we go deeper into this one, in temple structure and we follow certain basic philosophy of shapes. This is being repeated in multiple areas, multiple concepts, but most of the temple building are designed on these 3 major concepts. One is the square and rectangle shape. This is called Nagara shape. So this is, don't confuse this with the temple shape. This is the character of the shape, Nagara character of the shape. This is aligned with Brahma, and Guna is Satvik, happy, silent. Okay, it is contained. It is on creation, and it is for the soft devas. This kind of temples are for the soft devas, sattvic devas. The second group of shapes is polygons, octagon, hexagons, and others. So these are called Dravida shapes, and it is assigned to Vishnu, Rajasim, and it is Sthiti. This is protection, and it is slightly for Upradevas who are active. The third concept of shapes is normally without any corners, angles. This is circle, and then elongated circle, and then apsidal, and all the related various forms of ellipsoids. These are called Vesara shapes, and it is attributed to Shiva. And it is Tamasa, and it is Samhara, that is destruction. And it is for Samhara Devatas. This is a type of, please, this is not Samsara, okay, Samhara. Anyway, Samsara means Samhara, there is a different story. So you can take it in that way. This is for Samhara Devatas, okay. These are being samharad by the samsara. So these shapes, Nagara, Dravida, and Vesara shapes are the cornerstones for temple buildings. They are being used in mixed match in multiple aspects in multiple forms. You will repeatedly see these shapes in many of this. So this, if you talk about Linga concept is primarily a combination of these three shapes, where there is a base and there is a shaft. And if you see the shaft, this contains three parts. The bottom part, which is under the ground, is called Brahmapaka, which is square, which is the Nagara. And your Vishnupaka, which is covered by the pedestal, is on the octagon shape, which is a Dravida shape. The Rudrabhaka, which is visible as a linga or bana, what we saw, is circular Vesara. So this is a concept of linga. This is a concept of unification of three characters. So this concept of square, octagon, and circle will be repeatedly shown in all the temple forms. You can see it in pillars. This is called Rudrakanta pillar, where bottom is square, this is octagon, and this circular. You can see it in temples. If you see the temple, this is the Airavata temple. You see the corner small edicules. The bottom one is square. The next tier is octagon. The final one is circular. This also signifies a Sthula Linga kind of a concept, where the Vimana itself is considered as a Linga. Even when you go inside the carveling of a Vimana, this is how it looks. So the Vimana is structured by putting the successive, it's like a typical carveling which you do in an arch. So the same way they start crunching the extension one by one, one by one. Here also you see this Linga concept. It starts as a square, and then after 2/3 it goes into 8 angles, and finally around the Kalasa it ends as a circle. So this is also, the Vimana is termed as a Sthula Linga in these shapes. Now, coming to another logical aspect, when we talk about the temple is having this basic forms. The start is the Gopuram, and you have a Dvajastambha, and we have the Balipida, and then we have the Vahana Mandapa, Maha Mandapa, Artha Mandapa, and your sanctum, which is the called Garbhagriha. So these are the normal horizontal building blocks of any temple. So this is also equated to various lingas, Thula linga. This is like a linga, and then this is like a Mola linga, and then this is like a Akanta linga, like that. Shaiva temples are visualized as various forms of lingam. This is one aspect with which the temples are designed. The second aspect is that it is also equated to the human's chakras that are available in the human body, and with Mooladhara mapping to Dvajastambha, and then Rajasthan mapping to Balipida, are like that, and Visuddha mapping to the neck, and finally Agna Chakra mapping to the sanctum. So our elders visualized this as an equivalent of the yoga chakras also. This is also mentioned in some of the agamas and in some concepts. So let us see how it maps with an actual plan of a temple. So you can see that the Gopuram and the two Gopurams are there, and the Balipida is somewhere here, and then it is mapping, and then this is the next the Swadhisthana, and then this is the Mahamandapa, and then this is the Ardha Mandapa and the Vimana. So this is how a temple is visualized to the human chakras. Now, let us go to temples. What is a temple? Temple is a generic term. So people mix temple, Vimana, Gopura, Mandapa, everything. But to put the perspective in clear terms, there are three major building blocks. The first one is the Vimana. This is the sanctum, and it can be in multiple forms. And then the three sides are closed with the Devakoshams, niches for some. Normally it is I am talking about South Indian temples only. So normally it is pyramidal structure, and then it has got multiple layers. This is how a Vimana. Vimana is where the god lives. Okay. Vimana means beautiful, Vimana. This is unfathomable or excellent measurements. How it is excellent measurement, we will see later. The next component is Mandapa. These are all Mandapas. Okay, these are all various types of Mandapas. This is primarily for the devotees to come darshan and all the festivals, and then for the sub gods and everything. Normally in North Indian temples, there will be pyramidal structure in Mandapas also, but in South Indian, the Mandapas are bland. There is no superstructure and it stops at the roof. The third component, which is very unique to South Indian temples, in particular Tamil Nadu temples, is the Gopuram. This is the gateway, which is the North Indian equivalent of Pratholi or the archway. This is somewhat similar to in design to the Vimana, but it allows entry instead of an enclosed one, and we can have multiple Vimanas, but you will have only one primary. Multiple Gopuras, only one primary Vimana. This is a grand. So if a big temple, on all the four primary gateways, there will be multiple Gopuras. Normally it will have 4 or 5 concentric rings of prakaras or pathways. So on each pathway, there will be a Gopura on the entrance. So this is how we split this into 3 major components. Now, coming to Vimana, let us see what is a Vimana, how it is structured. People are getting confused. It is very simple. Vimana is visualized like a person standing, and it has got 6 basic components, Shatanga. Okay. So, like we saw earlier, how we compare the 6 Mooladhara and other Agna chakras of one, we can compare a Vimana to a standing person or a god. The same way, you can also compare it to a house. This is my house. And you can compare it with a house or a temple. Let us see how. The base or the knee portion is called in temple architecture terms as Adhisthana. This is the foundation on which the entire temple stays. You see that being architects now, you see that the vertical plumb line starts expanding in the Adhisthana to spread the load, and the same thing we do in buildings also. We spread the load, but mostly it is not visible there. It is buried inside where the columns are stepped and then done it. Whereas in temples, they do it at a slightly higher level and it is visible and it is done in a beautiful structure. This is the difference. Number two, this is the body. Body is called Bitti. Bitti is the wall portion of the temple. This is what is in the wall of the house where we have windows and everything. Here we have costumes, niches and other all embellishments on the wall. And this is the costume and this is the costume here where it is extended for a, this is the French window and you can call this as an equivalent of a French window or an extended stuff. The third is the shoulder portion, which is the roof here, and this is the roof. This is called the prastara. This is where ornamentally the slope or the overhang is called here as a kapota. It is like this. So the primary purpose is same, to prevent rainwater from dripping and to give some amount of shade so that the direct sunlight doesn't hit. The same function is ornamentally done here. Earlier temples, it is very small, whereas at a later point of time, as the technology of handling heavy size improved, this starts extending in a big way. What is next? The neck part. Neck part is called griva. So this is a slightly recessed part like this. And if you see this, the neck portion is also recessed here. This is where a typical flute or column and where the exhaust vents and other things are normally structured in a tower. The next part is the head, which is called shikara, and this is the top portion of the house, as well as this is a dome. This is a dome, the grand dome on top of this. So this serves two functions. One, the big ornamental visibility, and also the weight of the dome distributes and puts all the other stones inside, and the weight ensures that the stability is there. The last one is your hairstyle. This is called stupi. Your crown or hairstyle is called stupi. Where is the crown here sits? This is the TV antenna. So the TV antenna is the stupi for a house. So this way, we will be able to compare a human body to a equivalent of a house or a temple. So if you remember this way, the components of temples are always easy to remember, and this is how we call the Sanskrit names: Adhisthana, Bitti, and then Prastara, Griva, Shikara, and Stupi. So this is called Shatanga Vimana, a temple with 6 components. Now, this is standard, mandatory one, but how it evolved? The earlier cuts, can you guess what are the components? This is the Adhisthana, this is the Upapida, this is Adhisthana, Bitti, and then the Prastara is not there because it is slope. So there is a sloped Shikara, and then the 4 poles joining here is the Stupi. So this is what is exactly represented in Draupadi Ratha in Mahamandapuram. The stone rathas are the monolithic temples that is available in Mahabalipuram, is primarily the reflection of the kind of brick, mortar, and wood houses as well as temple that were prevalent in the 6th, 5th centuries. Now, let us look at the ground plans and how the temples were built. So you are all familiar with the ground plan, the diagram of how the temple looks like from above and the diagram, base diagram. The standard patterns which are used here again goes back to the three kinds of shapes which we talked about: Nagara shapes, Dravida shapes, and Vesara shapes. So the one is square called Chaturasam, rectangle, and then Ayata Chatra. There is a typo, and then now we are coming into the Nagara. These are Nagara types. These are Dravida type, hexagon and octagon, Sadarasam and Ashtasam. Then we have the Vesara type, circle, Vritta, and then ellipse, Vrittaita, circle with 2 points, and then Divyasrutra. This is apsidal, and racetrack kind of thing, Ayata Vrittam. There are temples like this plan. So now, whatever is a temples in Tamil Nadu, basically this will fit into any of these 8 forms. There are some rare deviations, but mostly we will fit it into this 8 forms. Why I am saying this is, next time when you go to the temple, this is what you should be seeing through and finding what is the ground plan, what is the thing. So your outlook should be valid. Now, the next is we are talking about the Vimana. These are now the ground plan and then how it looks like. So this is the temple, how it will look like in a square ground plan, rectangular ground plan, and then circular. So when you say this one, in a pure temple, from top to bottom, it will be all on square shape and it will be in rectangle. So normally this is for Vishnu or Saptamatrika, and this is for Shiva. And this time also this is for Shiva or some Ganapati temples. And this is also for Shiva, and in rare some Indra temples are there. This is the apsidal form. And this is the hexagon form, which is normally for Shakti or Muruga temples. So these are, so I have omitted ellipsoid, which is not so popular. So whatever is a temple in Tamil Nadu, this will be forming in these 5 major structures. Now let us see, having seen that temple and its components, let us briefly revise our understanding of taking an example. This is the Kodumbalar temple, which is a 2-thala temple, ground floor and first floor and Shikara. This is the variation. So earlier the temples what we saw had only the ground floor and then the roof, and then straight away it was going to Griva. Now we have an addition where we have the first floor also added. Like that, when the temples become bigger, we started adding more and more talas, up to 14 talas, which is the Tanjore big temple, which has 14 talas like this. So this is how temples can be structured building. Now, recollecting our definitions, this is just to understand how we can differentiate the components. The foundation, Upapidam, and this is the foundation base, and then this is the base. See this from the plumb line, how it is slowly expanding and spreading the weight, and that too in a differential way. And this is the sanctum wall or the base wall. Okay, and then we have the prastara or the roof or lintel, how we call it. This is the first floor. Every floor will be a combination of small temples and a wall. So this is like what do you say, hara. They call it as hara in Tamil. Hara is nothing but a malai, a string of flowers. So here you can think of this as a string of small temples. There is a rectangular temple here, and then there is a It's a rectangular temple in the middle, 2 square temples on the bottom, like the mala you have with rose in the middle, and then samandi in the end, and with the leaves in between. You can visualize it like a garland. Then you have the griva, and then you have the shikara. Okay, this is the vertical structure. When you talk about the horizontal structure, in the wall, when there is a niche and then where is a idol in it, it is called Deva Koshta, or otherwise it is called a Koshta. And this rectangular small temple is called Sala. And that's why this is a central column is called Sala. And the gap in between is called Agare. So we have a Salapati, and then we have 2 Agares, and then we have Karnapati is corner. In corner, it will be normally rectangular, square temples, and then this is called Karnapati. And this is where in the pillar, your normal cornice, the podikai is there. This is one of the component, and this is your kapodam as part of the prastara. And this concept of this is a frieze, which is a frequently appearing member in multiple areas. You can see the yali or swan or bhutam is getting repeated in a beautiful way. But the interesting thing is none are same. The harantara is the wall, inset wall of each hara. So each tala will be having 3 projecting small temples and the inset wall, which is called hara antara. This is the inset wall. And then Karnakudu Visa, and then Salai Visa, and Nasi. This is the earlier form of arch. Nasi is an arch. Mahanasika, again arch. The arch will be getting repeated in multiple areas. Again, this is an architectural member where during earlier times it was used for air and light ventilation in Buddhist chaityas and earlier caves and other things. But here it has become an ornamental member. Like that, the pillar is also, it is only an ornamental member, it is not a structural member. So this in brief gives the components. So it is difficult to understand, observe all these things, but just to give a perspective, I am giving how to analyze a temple. As you go through, you will be able to get a better things on this. So this is how I said, the center Sala vertical pati, and then 2 Karnapatis on side. And the gap is called Agare. So this is how you cut a temple into vertical slices, and this is how we cut a temple into horizontal slices. So now, after seeing this, now you understand how a wall looks like. Like we saw in the earlier time, we have a central rectangular Vimana on the first floor. So this is Salaipati, and then this is 2 apsidal small Vimanas here. This is called Panjarapati, and then 2 square Vimanas on either side. This is called Karnapati. See the complex projections, insets, and then the level differentiation that has been done in the earlier temple. This is the 11th century Gangaikonda Chodapuram temple. See the amount of pillar details, the amount of each one is like a mini temple itself with the complete 6 components. And see the way the foundation Adhisthana is getting extended in a grand way into a slope. The entire weight of the Vimana is getting spread through this. Whenever rain flows, the rain flows through this gap and then goes into the rainwater storage. Another interesting component of Tamil Nadu architecture, which is unique, is the importance it is given to the spout, pranala, because we perform a lot of abhishekam, and the abhishekam comes at the ground level through this Adhisthana as part of Adhisthana, This has been structured as a Pomugam with the water collection and drainage. And this has become a beautiful architectural member with its own components and its own beauty. It has done in a varied ways. So this is something which is of more focus in Tamil Nadu architecture and in Kerala and Karnataka. In Tamil Nadu, prakarams we take circular, whereas in Kerala we can't do circular. We come up to this and then go back and come the other way. In North Indian temples, this is not so prevalent, even though Abhishekams are performed. So we talked about Shikaras. Shikaras is the crowning member of any Vimana. We talked about various shapes like square top, hut top, circular top, apsidal top, polygon top, and sala kind of and back and top. If you see in Mahabalipuram, in the earlier time when they were doing monolithic temples, even at the time in 7th century, they have tried all combinations. Mahabalipuram is one place where you should visit if you want to know about temple architecture. So Valayankutta Ratham square and then Draupadi Ratham hut type. In Shore temple, there is a small temple in the pond, which is circular top. Nakula Ratha is apsidal. And then Dharmaraja Ratha is a standard hexagon and pinnacle of the structure. You have wagon top kind of a Ganesha Ratha. So next time when you go to this, you observe the plan, you observe how the Shikara is structured, how many layers are there. So all this is for this aspect only. Now we are coming to the next major building block, Mandabas. So Mandabas in Tamil Nadu or other contexts, it is slightly different. So it varies in concept. Normally it has got only 3 components. One is the Adhisthana, the Bitti, and the Prasthara, only 3. So there is no repeating layers or there is no superstructure on this. No Shikara, only flat roof. Prasthara extends vertically with Kudus and Vahana. In some of the things, the first level of Vahanas and the edicles will extend to a certain extent. And otherwise it will be decorated by Vahanas and an arch in the top. Normally, another interesting component is the mandabas which are connected to the main temple are usually covered, primarily for the puja and other functions. But the open mandabas, primarily for function and other things, where people can see from all the 3 sides, will have open with open pillars. So this is the structural design. This can be 1 tier or 2 tier. In Gangaikonda Cholapuram and in Tanjavur, we had 2 tier mandapas. The second tier is destroyed, but it is available in Malikas and some of the things. The interesting aspect of this is what was an ornamental component in Vimana, the pillars, developed in a grand way in mandapas. Earlier, the pillar width was very small, and then gradually over a period of time, it evolved and evolved to handle more load and came into very big proportions, like the old, we can compare it with the Greek pillars. Okay. Now, there are 2 types of mandabas, like I said earlier. We are talking about mandabas connected with Vimana. Normally, here, like I said, these are the mandabas. This is the Vimana, and this is the mandabas in a line connected. This is the Dharasaram temple. It goes all the way, and we see 2 gopurams on the end. So we have Antrala, which connects the Artha Mandapa to the main Mandapa as a connection. This is the Antrala portion. And then Artha Mandapa, where the prayer and other things happens. The Mukha Mandapa, where this is a Mukha Mandapa, where the entrance to the temple is there. And then there is a Rathakara Mandapa. Here there is a Rathakara Mandapa, where the structure is like with the 2 wheels and horses in front. It looks like a chariot. So normally a sequence of 1 or 2 or 3 very basic temple will be having only Vimana, some will be having one simple Ardha Mandapa, or some will be having Mahamandapa, multiple Mahamandapas with Mukasala, Rathahara Mandapa. So there is a combination. This is one of the complete, one of the largest ones. The other interesting fact is that earlier the Gopuras used to be very, very small and the Vimanas used to be very tall. Gradually over a period around 10th century, the trend reversed. And this is a temple where the Vimana and Gopuram are almost of the same height. Later period, Kulothunga Chola period, it become taller. We talked about mandabas connected to the temple. Now we are seeing mandabas which are around the temple, which are primarily designed based on the type of function there is. The Vasanta Mandapam is normally in front of a water body, and particularly for summer where the deities are here for many of the functions. And the Niyarali Mandapam is in the middle of the pond itself. So in many of the big temples like Madurai and other things, there will be a big mandapa in the middle of the pond. And this is Varadaraja Perumal temple. This is where the Ati Varadar resides. And in many places, there is a Sopana or Nitya Mandapam where dances and other happens. And later on, after 10th century, some of them were converted into Amman temples. And we have Kambathedi Mandapam. Earlier, the Dvajastamba and Palipida used to be in open. Later, Nayaka period, all these are covered and then covered with the Mandapa. So the pillars here are one of the beautiful pillars, and if you particularly go to Pandya country, beyond Madurai and others, this is the place where maximum sculptures will be happening. And you have Prakara Mandapa. So the outer perimeter wall, instead of just being a wall, it has got a, it started with a pathway, it became a mandapa. Now it has become a two-tier mandapa around Chidambaram, and many of the old temples have two-tier mandapas like this. The other ultimate innovation of Vijayanagara period is the Unjal Mandapam. Sorry, this is wrongly labeled as Kambathedi Mandapam. This Unjal Mandapam, where for Unjal Utshavam, why such a long, tall Mandapam? The Unjal will be hanging from here. The idols should be visible to all. So that's why these are tall and long mandapam. Here you can see two Unjal mandapams in Varadaraja temple. So this is how functionally they have done different mandapas for each of the function type. All these are later Nayaka types. Normally in Tamil Nadu temple architecture, okay, there are whenever Stapat is do, they mention that some of them are ultimate. I cannot make like this, except these. I'll be able to make this. So some of them are very, very unique and beautiful to Tamil Nadu architecture. One of them is in the Tiruvalanchudi, the windows, lattice windows done in stone. This is one single stone. And the kind of Kodungai, the Kapotam, which is coming in kind of a curved S-curve. It has gone to the extent of extreme work in later temples. And similarly, the Vabal Mandapam in Tiruvidi Madilai, it is of a somewhat Sabakara Mandapam. The inner is so curvy that many of the Vabals, the bats, are not able to hang on to the curvy surface. So it is called Vabal Mandapam. This is a unique kind of a largest Vabal Mandapam kind of structure in Tamil Nadu. The other one is the pillars that are there in Taramangalam. So these pillars are exquisite, and then this is the wonderful pillars of Taramangalam and the Prakara walls of Devikapuram. So it has got a 3 or 4 levels of friezes like elephants, boars, and then lions and other things, and then soldiers. Beautiful structure. So these are all some of the unique, beautiful executions by architectures. When you talk about pillars, pillar is a structural member. Earlier, it evolved as a simple member and then started adding more things. Pallava started this style of adding animals to the bottom base, and then they given their signature lion as the royal symbol, and then Narasimha period, lion pillar, Vyala pillar, and then there is a elephant pillar also during Pallava period. Rajasimha period, this is in Mamalla. This is Rajasimha period, we had leaping lions. And then Nandivarma period, quiet and calm sitting lions. And finally, Chola replicated this in Dharasuram in a totally different way. So these are all animal pillars, how a load-bearing mandal can be made beautiful. Then they started ornamenting on the pillars. One pillar contains so many temples and so many ornamental embellishments. And then this pillar contains 500 small temples complete with 6 components. So 2 such pillars opposite covers 1,000 temples. And these are all composite pillars which can handle a bigger load. So around the main pillar, they have added 4 subsidiary pillars, and the cornice is extending all over the place so that it can handle wider load distribution. The ultimate is the annuity pillar. Normal pillar being this size, they have added 1 subsidiary pillar, and the corbel is extended, and then they have added on top of the beam, the kapota is extended grandly, handled by a counterweight of Mushtibandham. On top of it, they had 1 more member called Nanadal with the balance of Vyala Vari. So instead of your pressure cross section being only this much, your pressure cross section becomes 4 times or 5 times here, so that it can handle a wider load, and the mandapa width becomes huge. The final pinnacle is pillars becoming sculptures themselves. Like this is 1 stone pillar where it handles a load and it also handles beautiful structures. The quintessential corbel, okay, which is a very interesting load-bearing member. Primarily, this distributes a load instead of being this much. It gives an additional surface for the load to get distributed. Okay, so this has changed so much. What was a simple, instead of a diagonal angle, it became a curve, and then with the ribs, and then again a path. And by Chola time, it became again double cut with the projection, and a small flower starts coming out in Pandya period, and which extends. And by the detailed Vijayanagara period, it becomes like a banana flower. The complete one, it hangs down. And see the way the amount it is getting extended from a small this extension, the area of extension is becoming bigger and bigger. So whenever you go to a temple, look at the corbel and you will be able to guess what period pillar it is. The same is true in the pillar definition. If you go to any temple, the sanctum, the pillars will be very bland like this. And if you go to the outside Nayaka mandapams and other things, they will be seeing the grand pillar. So by seeing the pillar design itself, you will be able to get on many of the components. Then, now we come to the next interesting component. We talked about the annuity pillar, where by adding additional components, it becomes a complex pillar and it is able to handle a wider load. The best example is the Rameswaram corridor, the longest corridor in the world, temple corridor in the world. This is wide, so wide. Earlier, the width between pillars used to be only this much, okay, where the pillar is only this much. Now it has increased it by 5 times. How is it possible? The pillar width or the weight bearing strength was only this much. Okay, this they have extended, and then it has increased it by 5 times. So instead of having one slab, up to this one slab, on top of it, another two slabs, another two slabs. So by increasing the load bearing capability and the slant of the pillar, they have increased the width of the mandapa to a great extent. That was the innovation of Mayakas. So the mandavas, which started as a very simple rain and shelter, sun shelter protections. From there, it evolved into beautiful big mandavas with ornamental pillars, and then it became like a cathedral kind of an sloping roof. And then they become like a beautiful ornamental corridors. And then later on, it become the mandavas and the pillars, they become museums by themselves. Each pillar is a grand sculpture. And if you go to Madurai, 1,000 pillar mandapa exhibition, each pillar is an art by itself. So this is how mandapas evolved in Tamil Nadu. Now finally we are coming to the component, the gopurams. Gopuram is not a vimana, it is not a mandapa, it is a gateway. And people always confuse vimana and gopuram. So what we see on left is a vimana, what we see on right is a gopuram. What is the difference here? The base here is two-side entrance, whereas in vimana it is only one entrance for the Garbhagriha. And then here the layers are called as talas, and then it is called as salai in gopuram. In the central Mukhasala, there is a deity. Here it is an opening to have the wind pass through from this side. This is open. And here it can have any shapes, whereas Gopura is always rectangular, Sala Shikara. Okay. And there are two Nasikas here on the front, and two Mahanasikas on the front, and two Sukhanasikas on the side. And the stupis here, normally it will be one stupi or three stupi depending on the shape. Here there is a multiple odd number stupi. So this is how the difference between Gopuram and Vimana. So again, Gopuram is a lighter structure, primarily a watchtower kind of structure. So many of the old Gopurams will be having bowl innards for options to climb. Up to this will be in granite. And after that, it will be brick and mortar, and in some time, wood will be used extensively in the inner construction. This is how multiple layers are happening. This is a cutaway view of one of the famous Madurai Meenakshi temple, where you can see that you can actually, they have structured layers one by one. In Madurai Meenakshi temple, you can actually climb up to the top of the gopuram, which they were allowing earlier. Now, even inside temple, even photography is not allowed. When you see from innards, this is how it looks. So this is the two parts, this part and this part, continues as a bowl up to the top, and the stairs are around, with the stairs start from here and then goes round in this round and top. So this is how they are able to reduce the weight and bring a taller structure, and they are able to put more talas. Vimana stop at 14, whereas Gopurams it goes 21 up to 21, 22. So how is it possible? By making this as a brick and mortar and making it light and making the internal bowl so that you can bring taller structures. I'm not going detail into this one. I will touch on three major Raja Gopurams. I hope you are able to identify this. This is the three top beautiful Raja Gopurams of Tamil Nadu. The first one is Tiruvarangam, the tallest one, 235 feet, sorry, not meter. And then Srivibuttur, 193 feet. And the Madurai Meenakshi, 51 feet, but the most beautiful. If you see this, this is classic pyramid. This is somewhat extended, and this is a beautiful, slightly concave. And if you see this, during Pandya period, it is star-studded with so many, around 2,000, 2,500 images. and each one describes a story. The other interesting structure in Tamil Nadu is the Prakara Mandapa. The way, instead of just building a wall around the temple, they made it into an arc by itself. The first one on this is the Kanchi Kailasnatha temple, where instead of just having a temple wall, they have constructed around 65 mini beautiful shrines all over the wall. And everything is a complete temple with 6 proper regular components. And then each one contains a fantastic sculpture of Shiva or Shiva Purana. You will require around 1 full day to go through this in a small approach. The other temple is the Kanchi Vaikuntha temple, where the Prakara is used as a history board. There are 256 historic panels like this, which describe the history of Pallavas from Brahma up to Nandivarma II. All the king's coronations, key events are described, and there is a book by Dr. C. Meenakshi, which describes these 256 panels in detail. The other innovation is in Tanjavur, Gangakonda Cholapuram, and in many of the older temples. There we have 2 Tala Malikas, where the royals and others will see from top, and the others will be there. And then this is the Malika, which is around the entire Gangakonda Cholapuram. At one time, it used to be there, but during British period, it was dilapidated and damaged. And then they used this stone to build the nearby river dam. So far, what we have seen in the 1 hour is the perspective of what is a temple, what are the various components of temple, and what are the key features, and what are the architectural innovations they have done. Okay, now Tamil Nadu, they say that it is a temple, state of temples. Why it is so? Let us see the perspective. If you see the top 10 tallest gopuras, except Murdeshwara, which is a very recent concrete structure around 240 feet, all the tallest gopuras are in Tamil Nadu only. Now let us see what is the status on Vimanas. The top 4 Vimanas are in Tamil Nadu. Okay. The grand one is the Chadurbuga Jhansi, which is an older temple. Kasi Vishwanatha is new. Except that, the big ones are, except Khajuraho, the bunch in the east and central east, like Puri, Lingaraja, Konark and Khajuraho, which takes a half. The other half of Vimanas, biggest Vimanas, are in Tamil Nadu. Let us talk about temple complexes. The largest temple complex in worship in India is in Srirangam, the biggest one, and another 6. If you see the latest one, Chhatarpur, Akshardham, are a very recent one. Belur Math also a very recent one, another 200-300 years old. Dakshineshwar, 200-300 years old. Rest of it, all these temples are there for 1,000 years. So that is the heredity of Tamil Nadu. Now we have, if you see in total number of temples, ASA monuments around 250, HRNCE, which controls the temples in Tamil Nadu, we have a count of around 44,000, out of which more than 100 years and very, very old heritage temple, 3,500, and less than 100 years is around 6,000. If you count a similar one, Tamil Nadu 44,000, Kerala 28, Andhra Pradesh 38, Karnataka 34, Maharashtra 45, Odisha around 33. So below Vindhyas in the square, we have around 223,000 temples, which is a huge amount. Whereas if you compare with the north, due to frequent invasion from the north and others, most of the temples were destroyed and renovated, or converted into mosques and other things. Whereas in south, relatively very quiet, and particularly in Tamil Nadu, primarily because of the strong Vindhya kings like the Chalukyas. Normally we curse Chalukyas, we also need to thank Chalukyas. It is the Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas, and the Orissa Gangas who protected us from the invasion from north, and then they were the buffer. Because of that, Tamil Nadu had a very peaceful 1500 years. The two occasions where the peace was disrupted was during Kalapara period in 5th century for 150 years, and later on during 13th century Muslim invasion. After that, the restoration happened by Nayaka kings. So till 17th century, it was ruled by Hindu kings, and the temples prospered. They had fight among themselves, but in the fight, ultimately, what happened was they also supported the temple. They destroyed the palaces. If you see in Tamil Nadu, none of the old palaces are visible. We can't see that. Only even Tirumala Nayakamagar, only a piece is there. Otherwise, you can't see any Chola palace or Pandya palace or Chala palace. Everything is destroyed, but they leave the temples alone. In fact, they give grants, more grants to the temples. Chalukyas come from Badami and invade. He saw the Kanchi Kailasana temple. He is amazed. Vikramaditya. Amazed. He said, stop this, don't touch anything. And he gives double the grant and says that Cholas came and destroyed our city, but I am not destroying the city. I am leaving and giving more grants to the temple. He goes, he takes more stapatis from Tamil Nadu, and he replicates the Virupaksha and other temples. And the Tamil Nadu style of temple building moves into the Badamian forward. And later on, it also gets copied into Yellara Kailasanada as the ultimate monolithic temple. So this is how, this is why, and this is the major reason why Tamil Nadu is called a temple state. If you count in terms of population or area, for the area, for every 3 square kilometers, we have one temple. This is such a density. This is the normal average density, including all those parts. You go to certain areas like Kanchipuram, Kumbakonam, Madurai, you have any number of temples in the area. So briefly, I am covering a few sections and then stopping at this. How it happened from Kalabara period, we had temples in wood, mortar, brick, and other things. Okay. Then early Pandyas and Cholas created cut-in caves, cut-in monoliths, structured rock temples. This was the period from 600 to 900. Then Imperial Cholas converted everything into grand style, big vimanas, conversion of old temples into granite structures, and then embellishment of Vimana with so many other beautiful ornamentation, structural engineering, bigger things, grand temples. Pandyas later on expanded at the Gopurams, Mandapams, roofing of the Prakaras. During the Vijayanagara period, the Gopurams become bigger and bigger, Mandapas, and then the entire structure was covered. Earlier it was open. Now in many of the bigger temples, we are not able to see the Vimana because the entire structure is closed with the roofing, and this is the contribution of Vijayanagara. Later on, during Nayakas and the Nagaratars, Chettinad Chettiars, it still expanded further, and then it has continued till 20th century by Nagaratar. Many of the beautiful innovations, for example, a man riding a cycle, and then Sudandara Devi, and all this kind of beautiful small structures which are coming up like that. Cycle was invented and 1100 years ago is a fake. Primarily, these mandapas were done during 19th century in the outer one by the Nagarathas. Okay. At the time, cycle was there, and then they inscribed the latest things in the mandapas as sculptures. So there are many such fake videos and others running around like ours as great. Primarily, many of these structures are done during Nagaratha period in the 19th century. Beautiful temple. You go to Karakkudi area, you get very sharp, beautiful temples. So this is how the temples in Tamil Nadu prospered and then supported by the various dynasties. Now, brief history before we start. Sangam period, we have mentioned how it happened even from Sangam period. We had content, we had coins. Pandya coins refers to small structures like temples. They had temples and which are brick and mortar. In Amaravati relief sculptures, stupas, they show about different types of houses, temples with multiple tiers, arches, and everything. That is beautiful. In our literature, in Silappatikaram, it talks about various forms of temples, Podil, Mandu, Eluthani Kadavul, and various types of temples. Most of them might be wood, brick and mortar, and other things, but we don't know the shape. Devaram, 7th century, and then the other things, talks about various types of Manik Koil, Pogudi Koil, Nyala Koil. He talks about various types of temples. And it also talks about the Mada Koils, where the temples built on pedestal by Kochankana, around 80 of them. And in terms of inscriptions, even in 5th century Pulanguruchi temple, it talks about Devakulam. In 7th century Vallam, in many of the copper plates of this area talk about Devakulam. So that is a standard term for a temple. And then we know that temples are structured existing from old times, but they were in tune with the living places of temples at the time, and that is how they structured it. And the other interesting thing is the Salon Kuppam, and this is another temple near Kumbakonam, where we are finding in the basement level bricks of a different structure and ratio. The temple is old. Temple is around 8th century. But if you see this was constructed on a foundation and base of a very old temple, where the basement bricks, what we find there, are of a different ratio, width, height, and length. The ratio is consistently different in a different design, which tallies with the excavations that are happening in other places where we find bricks of our Sangam or 3rd century, 4th century BCE. That measurements and this measurements tally. So we say that this is a old Sangam period temple base on which a new brick and mortar temple was built. So that is how we find evidences and then plans of Sangam period temples. Earlier, the rules and the structures were there to define how temples are evolved, and then these rules evolved over a period and rules. One of the formal and very famous structure is Kamika Agama mentions about the way temples are structured. This is very old. And then it was conveyed by word of mouth through Sanskrit slokas. This was later on codified in Mayamata. Most of the content is codified in Mayamata, which is around 6th, 7th century. And it has got 3,300 slokas in different chapters. So this is one of the earliest Shilpa Shastra structure, which it talks in detail about all aspects of temple building. Later on, it was refined by multiple agamas till the 14th, 15th century. which added more refinements as the temple building expanded. So this Mayamata has got multiple chapters. One chapter, one segment talks about the Vastu, how do you identify a site inspection, measurement, and then identifying the true east, and then splitting it into mandalas, and then how do we structure and plan towns and villages. This is one segment. The core section is about Devalaya from 11 to 25 chapters. It talks about how many stories, foundation, and then the underground base, pillar, and then roof, joinery, and then the superstructure, how stories are structured, and then what are the enclosures, sub areas, gateways. Gateways is gopuras, and then pavilion is nothing but mandapas. So all this, how to structure, what are the components, and what is the thing? Like we talked about basic 6 components. There are any number of subcomponents for each of this. It talks about in detail the measurements, the values, the combination, everything is detailed in the Snowcast. And it also talks about houses, Manushalaya, where our houses for normal people, kings and other things, royal palaces, how doors are to be structured. And it also talks about pratimas, the sculptures, vahanas, and then pedestals, linga, how to structure, and then iconography, how to renovate a temple. This is a very extensive, you will be surprised that this kind of detailed documentation is available even before 6th century, and then it was codified into written form around 7th century. An example of what kind of rules or combinations that are there in this are like this. Now, when we talk about Vimana on the top, we talked about is a grand or beautiful measurement. Vimana. Mana means measurement. Vimana means unfathomable or beautiful or grand. Okay. So your measurement for Vimana is from our Bua, Sapadu. Your basic measurement is 1 grain of rice. So if you put 8 grains together, it is called 1 viral or 1 inch. This is a standard of measurement. So they also talk about the kind of rice grain. This is called sennal, where the width, the height of the length of the grain is 2 times the width. So when you put 8 such grains together, it is called an inch. So 24 inches comes to your Kishkumalam, which is equivalent to 2 3/4 feet. It is around 24 plus 9, around 33 kind of length. So this is the standard measures by which they used to calculate. So depending on how a temple is to be done, there is calculations on what is the ground plan. From the ground plan, there is a 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3 kind of a mandalas grid. And then in the center, there will be a Garbhagriha or the sanctum. Around this, all the other components will be done. So when you talk about a Vimana, the base is if it's a square, this is your base called Dandam. This is your base unit. And normally, the temple, for various types of temples, they say that it can be 2 times, 1.5 times, 3 times like that. There are ratios for different classification of Vimanas. So taking a Jayatam kind of Vimana, so the rule is that you divide the width or Dandam by 5 and add 4 parts to it. That is the rule. So whatever we get, we divide into 10 parts and distribute in this ratio into 6 parts of this Adhisthana, and then Padam, Prastaram, and then Kandam, Shikaram, and Stubi. So this is how the 10 parts need to be distributed. So if your Dandam or a base measure is around 10 feet, then your height is going to be around 20 feet. The 20 feet needs to be distributed in this ratio so that the individual measurements of each component is defined. So like that, there are any number of combinations. There are many types of Vimanas that are specified. For each of them, the ratio slightly, it will be slightly elongated, it will be tall, or it will be zone, lot of variation. So having decided on the distribution, the subcomponents are also defined in detail. When you talk about Adhisthana, we take one type of Adhisthana called Padmabandha Adhisthana. So it has got, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it has got Upanam, Jakati, and then Kumudam, and then Kambu, and then Kandam, Kambu, and you have Mahapatika, Kambu. So this is the components. So for this, now as per this, Prastara is one part, which is around 1 feet kind of one calculation, let us assume. This 1 feet or the 1.5 feet is distributed, divided into 25 parts and distributed in this way. So depending on different kind of Adhisthana, we have around 20 to 30 various definitions of Adhisthana with components. So for each of these, there is a calculation to divide by 25 and distribute into the zone. So we know the Kambu should be this size, the Mahapatika should be this size. People have actually measured in the reference Vimanas and they say that they conform to this kind of a standard. So this is how the Vimana is a great measurement, and this is how the architectural structure is managed. So the rest of this session handles the various innovations in early Pallavas, and I'm just flashing through this primarily because we are running short of time and it's already 1 hour 15 minutes. So I'm just flashing. So this Pallava period, we had multiple cave temples. They were the starting cave temples where a lot of cave temples were done in Mahabalipuram. So basically they are cut in caves. The next innovation by Pallavas is the monolithic rathas. In Mahabalipuram, we have 9 monolithic rathas which are sculptured in various. They had done the experimentation to the extreme. The final pinnacle is the Ganesh Ratha and the Pandya Kalugumade. Later on, they went into structural temples. Malai Shore temple is the structural temple there. And they started load-bearing temples like Kanchi Kailasanatha. And then they also went into innovations on the Ashtanga Vimana. This is the apartment, first apartment for God. We live in flats. Okay, we say that this is innovation. It is not an innovation. Even during 7th century in Kanchipuram, there was a 3-tier Vimana where 3 deities were one on top of it in 3 separate sanctums, one on top inside the Vimana. Uttaramerur had 9 such sanctums inside the Vimana itself. Very, very complex structure, and it was replicated all over Tamil Nadu in various things. The latest design in this is the Besant Nagar Ashtadashmi temple. Cholas were primarily focusing on the granite structures and then experimentation and ornamentation, big proportions, and miniature sculptures, and the exterior walls with a lot of embellishment. So the grand designs are these 3 temples. They started with pedestal temples. Pedestal temple is nothing but the ground floor will be just a pedestal and filled in, and the temple will be on the first floor. Kochengadan is credited with building a series of temples near river bank, just to avoid flooding and then ensure that the temple is at a higher ground. One of the complex temples built here is the Sirkali temple, which has got 3 tiers, accessible from different parts by different stairs. The beautiful temples of the early Chola period is the Vijayalaya Cholaswaram, and then Thiruparanam and the Pullamanga temples, where a lot of innovations and embellishments and then the projections are taken care. The final pinnacle is the Tanjavur big temple, where this is called Dakshina Meru, 14 talas, and then level 1 there is a Sandara with the paintings. Level 2 there is a circumambulatory path inside this, and then level 2 it has got sanctum and mandabas. Even mandabas are 2 tier which were destroyed earlier. the innovation in this structure is that the entire load of the temple is controlled by the Shikara, and this load is distributed in the corbel arch here. So this corbel arch distributes the load into this two separate walls. Instead of having a single corner wall, the wall is thick enough with a gap in between. By the carbeling, the load is split into two areas. This is called Sandara. The Sandara technique was implemented in some of the bigger temples. So in this style, Cholas have built 4 of the biggest temples. 3 of them are UNESCO monuments: Rajarajeshwaram Tanjavur, Gangakonda Cholam, Rajeshwaram Tarasuram, and Tirubhuvanam was supposed to go into UNESCO, but 4 are grand, beautiful temples with very, very complex structure. This is the pinnacle of Chola. Later Pandyas were focusing more on Gopuram. Vimanas, Cholas have done the maximum, nothing else is possible. They are focusing on outer lying things. They change their pillars, outer walls, and temples as fortress cities. So the key areas, key temples where the Madurai temple was redeveloped after 13th century by Nayakas, and the Srirangapattur temple was built in a bigger way. Srirangam was expanded with 21 gopuras. Vijayanagara period was a renovation after the attack and everything. And they restored semblance of control to this. Most of the open areas is covered by flat mandabas, elaborate work than gopurams. Pillar technology, they took to a totally different level. Varieties of mandabas all over the place. And the prakaras, concentrated prakaras, the entire prakaras were roofed and then covered. This is where the idols of kings and queens started coming up. Till now, we don't know how a Chola looked, we don't know how a Pallava looked. Now, for Nayaka period, the kings are always there standing at the entrance. And they built a lot of temple tanks and temple cities. So the Rameswaram, Madurai, and the other major cities are classic examples of most of the outerlying mandapams will be in Vijayanagara period. Now coming to the modern temples. In 20th century, we are happy that the Dravidian style components have not changed. It is still from lime and mortar, now concrete with iron shell gives a lot of flexibility, but there are no variation. I have seen in North India and in Orissa and Gujarat, if you see the local temples, they are atrocious. They are in modern form and there are no standards, nothing, horrible. Whereas in South India, you go to any small Pullayar temple or Amman temple, the basic components which I explained here, the concepts, components, ratios, they are there. The Sthapatis of Tamil Nadu have done the job to a great extent and they are reviving and then they are trading a lot of things. And the major contribution by Nagarathas is a classic one. They continued what the Nayakas left at a later period, and then many of the recent renovations are by Nagarathas, and in particular in South. One horrible activity is that in many of the old temples, even the Garbhagriha is renovated with mosaic tiles, with bathroom tiles, and it looks very horrible. You can see some of the new constructions. One is the Golden Temple, beautiful concrete structure, and the recent one in Kanyakumari, Tirupati Balaji Temple. The entire lower portion is a mandapa, like a Mada Koil, and the temple is in open on the first floor with a grand view of the 3 seas. Again, interesting, we still have temples in first floor. In an apartment temple, in an apartment house, they have built a Ganapati temple. Still, they wanted to have the standard structure. The temple is in first floor. The entrance is through this way. So the Gopuram and other things, they have structured here. You take the stairs like this and go. So the Vimana, they have structured there. And the Vimana superstructure and other things, they have adjusted on the first floor itself at the roof. So this is how innovations happens within the available phase. This is Tamil Nadu. So next time, when you go to a temple, leave your chappals outside, have a chai outside, enjoy the Gopuram, see the tear sculptures. You have a tea, relax and then enjoy the tea and then have 10 minutes, look at the Gopuram, then only go inside. In the courtyard, you can see how the Toranas, Balipida, Dwajastambham, how they are structured, the base and other things. Mukhamandapa, when you enter it, see the kapotas or the carnies on the top, the balcony roof. There are a lot of innovations there. In Mahamandapam, when you go to the big ones, see at the pillars, roof, windows, there are a lot of ornamentation. The windows are art by themselves, and each pillar has got different structure. You can identify the period, you can identify the cornice, you can identify the structure. When you go to Attamandapa, you can see the lintel, how it is structured, and how the sanctum is structured, whether it is square or round, or is there any background sculptures. And then when you come out, see the Devakostas and ornaments in the wall, pillars, pilasters, sculptures, and then go to a corner. Okay, go to southeast corner or northeast corner and sit down and look at the Vimana. See how many tiers are there, what kind of small temples are there in each tala, what is the sequence, what is the type of shikara they have, what is the structure, and what is the design, and what are the configuration of substrates. They follow a standard. The substrates available around the temple, there is a standard for it. And if you analyze, you will be able to find it. So this is how, based on the small time, whatever I had around 1.5 hours, I had tried to explain some aspects of the heritage of our temple, how it has progressed from a very small temple with agamas, think through, and innovation and science, and lot of architectural principles and the philosophy. All this is a mixture. Temples are living places of God, and they have a life of themselves. So next time when you go to a temple, treat it like this, understand the components, appreciate the heritage and the effort put by our forefathers. Hope this will be a good revelation for many of you. And with your architectural experience, you will be able to see the other side of temples. Thank you for the time and the little extended session. I hope it was interesting. And if you have any doubts, you can always contact me in this following details. And many of my presentations are available in my YouTube channel, Babu for Heritage. And this is another interesting area where we can watch it. There is also a training coming up for 1 week full-fledged training on temple architecture from September. You can contact me for details. So for people who are interested to get to know more about it, you can always connect me. Thank you for the time. Thank you for an interesting session on this.
Yes, sir. Actually, we have a couple of questions in the chat box. Maybe we'll just answer 2 or 3 since it's already time. Vaidyanathan sir has asked, who do you think is the author of Agamas, and would there be any updation of these rules to suit the future or new age temples?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
Yes, sir. Who do you think is the author of Agamas, and would there be any updation of these rules to suit the future or new age temples?
The Agamas developed over a period, and then it was credited by 2 people, Mayan, who is a mythological sculpture, and another one is Vishwakarma, who is typically credited with most of the North Indian ones. And these Agamas are refined and expanded by multiple people by adding more and more commentary. For example, Adhisthana types in Kamika basic one is only 4. It expands to 16 and 25 like that. In each of these, based on experience, they expand the content. Similarly, the earlier Gopura tiers were only up to 14 or 7. Then in the later agamas, based on the convenience like other things, it expands up to 21 and so on. So the base content is there, and people over a period refined a lot of agamas. For example, Samarangara Sutradhara was written by Boja King, and it had a lot of innovations in expanding the base agama with the practices or the changes at the particular time. So this keeps on evolving, and even during 21st century, many other things were there for rituals or complex can be refined in a different way. For example, there is a temple in Murudeeshwara, beautiful Gopuram. Mayamata is authored by Mayan, the celestial sculpture. So that Murudeeshwara temple forms the common structure from the front. It conforms to the definitions. But internally, it is structured in a different way. Instead of being a bowl, it has got a structured stairs to the 22 floors, and it has got 2 lifts where you can go to the top floor and enjoy the view. This is the modern innovation inside a traditional temple structure. Okay, the next question.
So next,
Thanks, Sridhar Ganapati sir, for the feedback.
next question is, as far as spouts are concerned, I was told that if the temple had Gomukha spout, the temple belonged to the priests, and Simhamukha spout, it belonged to the rulers. Is it true?
Can you repeat the question, please?
As far as spouts are concerned, I was told that if the temple had a Gomukha spout, the temple belonged to the priests, and Simhamukha spout, it belonged to the rulers. So, is it true?
There is no such definition as far as I know. If any references you know of, you can always share me, I can validate.
One more question is, who was the author of Mayamata?
Mayamata is supposed to be written by Mayan, the celestial sculpture. There is another celestial sculpture called Vishwakarma who structured Ramayana, the Mahabharata palace also. So these are all Puranic figures, and this might have been come from Purana period, and then it was initially conveyed as a word of mouth as slokas, and it was codified into written form only during later period after 7th or 8th century. There is a question about from Vaidyanathan Kannan, what do you think about the ISKCON temple? So what do you want me to say on the architecture side or the spiritual side? From architecture side, primarily ISKCON temples are an amalgam of Nagara North Indian style. They mostly follow North Indian style with some amount of combination from other things. But they have their own standards.
Sir, this is Vaidyanathan.
Yes, tell me, sir.
Does it follow Agamas, sir? Does the ISKCON temple follow Agamas?
Not completely, because it might be different. They may be following different things to a certain extent.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
See, there are variations, and then in many of the temples, again, when you say Agama, like which Agama? There are any number of Agamas. There are Vaishnava Agamas which are there for Vaishnava temples. All your Ashtanga temples, are
Yes.
not defined in your regular agamas, Silpa Shastras, okay?
Correct.
But it is defined in Vaishnava agamas to have different deities in different layers, okay?
Yes.
This,
Yes.
this is primarily Navamurti Stapana Viti. Like that, there are many variations. People follow different agamas. If you talk about Tamil Nadu, Kamika Agama and Maya Mata is the base, because most of these agamas originated from Tamil Nadu.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just one. Any book for exploring old temples? He's asking for a book.
Not one single book. Actually, there are many books. If you want to learn about temple architecture, read some of the basic books like Marabu Kattadakalai by Thirunyanam from Mahabalipuram temples. Or there are simple books available from HRNC and archaeology department. They have published some simple books. If you want to go deeper into this, the ones like the Adam Hardy and M.A. Daki books, they are good at the reference level. But if you want to understand a temple and basics, basically go to the websites and where they describe about the temple in detail. That way, you get a more insight about a particular temple. Okay, there are two ways to analyze it. Many of the architectural classes talk about temple by explaining different temples. Okay, the way I take a 7-day class is that I train the fundamental components of temples, Vimanas, and other things for 3 days. And the last 2 days only I talk about the various temples that are available. This way you will be able to understand the temples in a better way. Kongu temples, there are some books. I will check and refer with you. You can send me a ping and I will share with you. Temples of Kongu Nadu. There are HRNC books available. And if you look at Kanjipuram district archaeology or a temple guide, you will be able to know about Kongu Nadu temples.
Thank you, sir. So everyone, we'll be posting a link in the chat box, a Google Form link. So can you all please fill it out, and there'll be a e-certificate provided for all the participants. So you can check the chat box for the link. And I would like to call Professor Loganathan sir to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, dear all. Dear sir, Shivashankar Babu sir, it was a really mind-enthralling presentation, and you almost poured a very great ocean into a silver cup and given to us. That is the kind of experience what we got. In fact, this would have been a very difficult task for you, a very knowledgeable person in this particular subject, to give us a gist of the whole thing in a nice nutshell to understand. In fact, I see a lot of comments. People were saying it's very interesting and also given in a very simplified, understandable format. So, thank you so much for your meticulous planning on this kind of simple presentation. But your inputs and information for in every slide was actually worth a lot. And you started off with the comparison with the human body, and then up to how gods are made to be in apartments up to that point. And most importantly, the last one you mentioned about what to look for when you go to a temple apart from worship. That is a very, very interesting part. Now I'm really certain that would have instigated most of our students and teachers and others to certainly visit the temple at the earliest as soon as possible. Okay, I'm also, so thank you so much, sir, for your time and for your kindness of sharing your knowledge with us.
Sure. And, thank you very much. Actually,
I found a lot of students, not only students, I found a lot of architects, teachers, even travel guides and many other friends who participated here. Thank you so much for that. And I am thanks very much thankful to our management, our care at the Chettinad School of Architecture, Architect Radhika for comparing this. Sir, you were about to say something, Shivshankar Babu, sir.
Yeah, it was a challenge. In fact, you pointed it rightly. Usually, I take a 2-day, 3-day session or a 7-day session on to give the concepts of this temples and various things. Since the timing was right, which one to cut? இது மாதிரி நம்ம எதை எடுப்பது எதை விடுப்பதுன்ற மாதிரி, that was a major challenge for me. And I tried to keep it to more of fundamental concepts on how it is done rather than trying deeper into terminology, which we can always take it at a far more detailed training sessions. Okay, but the fundamental concepts are the most critical ones. If people from the architecture side, if they understand the other side of the picture, like Agama, the way the structure, the usage of shapes, and how the history behind the particular shapes and structures, then they will be able to appreciate the architecture in a very big way. That is what this kind of talks will help. And I thank the management for giving me an opportunity to again spread the heritage about the Tamil Nadu temples. Thank you very much.
In fact, we feel very, very proud when you mentioned about with the statistical data about the kind of architectural heritage that we possess in this particular region. So thank you for sharing that particular data also. And thanks one and all for attending this program. And we will come up with more programs in the future. And we always look forward to seeing you with us. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Logan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
We can all leave.
Yes.
Yeah.